Well, I have to say I was a bit shocked the other day when my own mother informed me that despite viewing just about every video I've ever released on my channel, she is considering voting for Mark Carney because, as she tells me, her vote will be determined by who is going to handle Trump better. And putting aside whether or not that ought to be the ballot question, the reality is I'm sure that this is a common thought amongst many former and potentially future Liberal supporters. So with only a few days left before the election, because it is the reality that this is the ballot question for many people, I wanted to make a video talking about this and seeing how Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney stack up against Donald Trump, and why if you're leaning towards Mark Carney, you really should give Pierre Poilievre another look.
Make them more hostile to us and possibly
I'd rather deal with a liberal than a
for China.
So firstly, let's look at how Mark Carney stacks up against Trump. Mark Carney has pitched himself repeatedly as the best person to handle Donald Trump on Canada's behalf. It's easy to argue that he's built his entire campaign around that threat of Trump. A good example of this is his closing statement during the debate when he addressed Canadians directly.
We are facing the biggest crisis of our lifetimes. Donald Trump is trying to fundamentally change the world economy, the trading system. But really what he's trying to do to Canada, he's trying to break us so the US can own us.
Because of this framing, which Mark Carney chooses to encourage, I believe he thinks he has no other choice but to make it appear as though he's having success negotiating with Trump even when he's not. And this explains why he said Trump respected Canada's sovereignty during their phone call, even though we now know Trump never ceased the 51st state rhetoric nonsense. If Carney's willing to be dishonest about the central pillar of his campaign in an effort to mislead voters, it implies to me that there isn't anything he won't be dishonest about to get what he wants, which, aside from making him a bad negotiator with Trump, would also make him a terrible leader. And also, let's not forget that Trump has publicly stated his desire for Mark Carney to win, as Trump believes a Liberal government in Canada will make it easier for him to achieve his goals. So if your goal is for Trump to not achieve his when it comes to Canada, then it seems Mark Carney is obviously not who you want to vote for. Unless, of course, you don't believe Trump when he says he'd prefer Carney to win. But if you don't believe him about that, why do you believe his threats?
The president unsure about Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre.
Well, I think his biggest problem is he's not a MAGA guy, you know? I mean, he's really not. He's not a Trump guy at all. I don't like what he's saying about me. It's just not positive about me.
What about how Pierre Poilievre would stack up against Trump? Well, first of all, let's address this idea that everyone on the left seems to have that Pierre Poilievre is somehow like Trump. I never really understood Liberals' claims that Poilievre is like Trump, aside from a purely cynical standpoint where they think that there's an electoral advantage to it. But aside from being the leader of the party on the right of the other dominant party, they have basically nothing in common. Trump grew up with money. Pierre had a modest upbringing. Trump was a failed businessman, couldn't make a casino work. Pierre has been a successful politician basically since becoming an adult. Trump has been the leader of a country. Pierre never has yet. Trump is old. Pierre, relatively young comparatively. Trump can hardly form coherent sentences.
They go, these are not muscle guys here, they're muscle guys up here, right? And they calmly walk to a seat, ding, 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 ding.
Whereas Pierre has been articulating his ideas under pressure in the House of Commons for years. They're very different people, had very different history, very different communicators, very different ideas. And when it comes to how Trump feels about Pierre, I've already shown you he's clearly not a fan. And when it comes to how Pierre feels about Trump and his recent actions, he has been just as clear as Mark Carney.
On President Trump's remarks yesterday, let me be clear, Canada will never be the 51st state. We are a proud, sovereign, and independent country. We are a patriotic people, and we will defend our future and our independence. Second, he has threatened to bring in tariffs on our steel and aluminum. We will retaliate in kind with matching tariffs on American aluminum and steel, all of the proceeds of which will be given back to our steel and aluminum industry, and any surplus will be given in tax relief for our people.
The fact that the left-leaning media who depend on liberal government subsidies for survival keep saying that Pierre isn't as tough against Trump as Carney doesn't make it true. The reality is that these organizations are heavily invested in a liberal win and are not being impartial at all. The CBC knows that they will be defunded if the Conservatives form government, and they're acting in their best interest. As the opposition leader, it would be highly inappropriate for Pierre to be having backroom conversations with Trump, and he's rightfully not done so. So we have no conversations to compare with Carney's phone call with Trump. But since we know that Trump never stopped with the annexation comments and that Carney misled everyone about it and nothing was accomplished, it definitely cannot be considered a win for Carney. So it might not be 1 for Pierre, but it is still 0 for Carney, and it might even be -1. He's had the opportunity to speak with Trump, and nothing was accomplished, nothing was improved. When it comes to facing Trump as Prime Minister, both Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney would have the exact same tools to work with. They would both be Prime Minister of Canada. They would surround themselves with a similar group of experts on matters like trade and defense. The single largest variable is Trump himself. He makes sudden erratic moves, often with confusing motivations based on falsehoods or nonsensical reasoning. It's like playing poker with someone who doesn't understand the rules. Nuanced plays and bluffs aren't going to work if your opponent thinks that all reds is a winning hand.
Fellas, all
Okay.
reds. Yeah. What up, dog?
All right.
Mark Carney doesn't have some magical power of negotiation, and since we can't assume that any deals with Trump would even be honored, he didn't honor the last one that he signed with us, the best way to handle the situation is to just strengthen Canada's position, because we can't anticipate what the United States are going to do, even if they say what they're going to do. And if we're in a weak position now, to begin with, well, there's only one party who's been in charge the last 10 years, and it seems to me like a bad idea to give them more time to fail. Aside from Carney, it's all the same people. If they haven't been able to put Canada in a strong position after 10 years, why would they start now? Because suddenly it's serious? Governing people's lives should have always been serious, and they shouldn't be rewarded with another term after treating the honor so flippantly for a decade. Anyway, that's just how I see it. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you thought I made any good arguments, please share this video with someone who plans to vote on Monday, and I will see you in the next video.